Welcome to the Brain Picker Pro Show, live from Lake Wiley, South Carolina. I'm Larry Goins, and all the way over in St. Louis is my good friend, longtime friend, fellow mentor and coach and real estate guru, the man, the myth, and the legend, Joe McCall. What's up, buddy?
Hey, Larry Goins. Good to see you. It's been a little while. I had just interviewed you on my podcast, and I love interviewing you on my show because you give so much really good information, and it's an honor to be on yours.
So, Joe, tell our listeners and viewers a little bit about yourself.
Well, okay, cool. My name is Joe, and I started getting into real estate in 2006, 2007. Read some good books. I was broke. As an engineer, I was making good money, but I was spending it all, right?
Right.
Doesn't matter if you've got a college degree and you're making 75 grand a year. There's more stress that comes with that, you know?
Right.
So, but anyway, I was getting really interested in real estate. I was starting to buy a lot of books, starting to go to boot camps and workshops. I was starting to buy a lot of courses. I would go to eBay and buy tons of courses on eBay. And I became an information junkie. I was in this phase, Larry, where I was getting paralyzed, overanalyzing everything and not taking any action. So I decided to go spend $1 credit card coaching, and the coaching was good. They gave me really good information. My wife was behind me 100%, but doggone it, Larry, I didn't implement anything, right? So how much money are you going to make if you don't implement what you learn? So I wasted, literally, maybe I wouldn't call it wasted because I learned a lot of good things, but
right.
I was so discouraged because I didn't do anything that they told me to do. And I remember at the time thinking, oh man, this is so elementary. This is so basic and simple. I'm smarter than that. I'm college educated. I was so arrogant, but I thought I knew better. I'd never done a deal before. I didn't like what they were telling me to do because it sounded too simple. I was more professional. So, they were telling me to contact landlords on Craigslist, to send postcards to landlords, or to go network with realtors and make offers on the MLS. And so anyway, fast forward then a couple, 3 years. Market crashes. I bought some properties with bank financing, but my back was against the wall. I was hemorrhaging cash. I had a lot of vacancies. I was way over my eyeballs in debt, bank loans, private loans, subject twos, and I was in a world of hurt. And so what was a real turning point for me, Larry, was I had to make a decision. Am I going to continue working my engineering job, or am I going to do real estate? I got to choose one or the other.
Right.
And so I chose real estate. But then I knew, man, I got to decide. If I'm looking at real estate, there's all these different strategies out there. I was looking at short sales and lease options and wholesaling and fix and flip and subject twos. And I said, I got to just pick one strategy and go for it. So I said, all right, I'm going to buy one more course. And I bought a course on wholesaling. And I said, I'm going to do what this guy says to do, whether I like it or not.
Right.
I'm not going to question anything. I'm not going to change anything. I remember so clearly reading this course. I was sitting on the driveway. My kids were riding bicycles around the cul-de-sac. And this was at a house that we eventually lost to short sale because I was just hemorrhaging cash so bad. I knew I had to make a change. My back was against the wall. I said, I'm just going to do what this guy says. I didn't like his postcards. I thought they were ugly and unprofessional. I didn't like his scripts. I didn't like his contracts. It was only one page. I thought you had to have a 20-page contract to be legit. And I said, I'm just going to do what he says to do. And so sure enough, I sent his postcards, I used his scripts, I made his offers, used his contracts, and I did a deal, Larry. The seller wasn't because I was super smart, because she practically begged me to buy her house. And it was in an area that I'd never been to before. It was way out in the sticks. I had no buyers. It was too hard to find comps.
Right.
It was a 3-family out in the sticks in the country. And I could see that it had expired the year before for $140-something thousand.
Right.
I just said, I'll offer you 50. And she said, okay, great. I was so scared. She was elderly, so I made sure that her son was with her.
Right.
And I met her at a local YMCA. I got the contract signed. I dusted off every course that I could find. Yours was probably one of them. I looked at all of the different clauses and contingencies that I could put into the contract, Larry. And I said, all right. So I had so many contingencies in there. I'm sure that I contradicted each other, Larry. It was so bad. And And then I gave it to her. I was nervous, and she signed it without even reading it. I spent so much time looking at that contract and understanding every single thing about there in case she had a question about it.
So she didn't even read it.
She didn't even read it. And her son didn't read it. She's like, oh my gosh. So then Larry, she signs her for 50. Then I'm freaking out. Like, what do I do now? So I remember somebody saying, put a sign in the yard. So I put a sign in the yard. I think I even paid a flat fee listing agent to do a flat fee listing on it. And then I started getting calls. And I advertised it for 65. I started getting calls. And then the first guy that called me was a realtor. And oh no, it's a realtor. What am I supposed to do now? And the guy says, I have a guy who's interested. I said, well, I got to tell you something. I don't own this house. Like, I'm a wholesaler, and I have it under contract, but I've not bought it yet. I hope that's okay. And the realtor says, relax, it's all right, It's okay. So I don't even have a title company. I'm like, this is way out in the sticks. She says, that's all right. We'll just use my buyer's title company. No big deal. I said, well, how am I going to pay you the commissions? He said, don't worry about it. My buyer will pay the commissions. I says, it's okay. And he says, yeah, don't worry about it. Like, here, Larry, I've been studying this stuff for 5 years, right? And I'm so nervous, so stupid. But anyway, the guy says, don't worry about it. So I said, well, give me the name and number of the title company. I need to call them. He says, okay. So I called the title company. I said, listen, I got this under contract for 50. I'm selling it to this guy for 65, but I don't own it. I'm just wholesaling it. I don't know the right way to do this. I don't have the money to buy it. Do I have to do double closing, assignment? What are my contracts? What kind of paperwork do I need to use? And they said, calm down. It's okay. So anyway, end of the day, like a week after I actually closed on it. I got it under contract. This guy bought it for cash at this traditional title company with a traditional realtor.
Right.
And I made $13,000 after all my closing costs. And, everyone's happy. The seller was happy. The buyer was happy. I was happy. But now, Larry, I was that guy with the check. Like, I've been to all the boot camps. I'd seen the gurus up there with the checks on the testimonials. And I just remember thinking, that's BS. That's no way. And then thinking, I want to be one of those guys. And all of a sudden, I'm like, I can't believe it. This actually works. I was so excited. I had a check, and I didn't even make a copy of it. I'm so mad at myself even today. I didn't get a copy of that check, but all of a sudden I was like, wow, this works. I believe it works. And I remember looking back thinking, why didn't I do this when I got into that coaching program? Why didn't I just do what the guy said to do? And so anyway, from then on, man, it just like I was like a banshee, whatever that means. Like, I started sending out tons of postcards, tons of marketing, started doing deals. Then that kind of, maybe I can talk about this later, but I started doing lease options then because I got tired of throwing away so many leads that didn't have any equity. But I quit my job about a year later, 2009,
right,
when the market was falling apart, and never looked back. But that really emboldened something in me and burned it into my head. Like, when I stopped overanalyzing things and just started taking massive action, stopped asking what if, and started just asking what next. Like, and got over my fear of making mistakes, that it actually started working. Does that make sense?
It absolutely makes sense. And there's so many people out there that get what we call paralysis of analysis, right? Yeah. But it's like, I tell people, what if you made no offers last month? You had zero chance of buying a house, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You had zero chance of making any money in real estate if you made no offers last month, right? Yeah. So you got to get out there, and you got to, I tell people this training, and I see your bookcases in the background, but here's one of mine. Here's one of mine right here, and over here's on the other side, right? There's my whiteboard. You see my whiteboard?
One of your grandkids.
Yeah, but
that's awesome.
But, you know, I tell people this stuff is self-help, not shelf-help. You got to get it off the shelf and
that
use
is good.
it.
Can
right?
I write that down? This is self-help, not shelf-help.
Right. You said one a minute ago that I needed to write down, and I forgot what it was, but it was good. I should have wrote it down when you said it a minute ago.
Somebody listening to this will remember.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, you know, Larry, and I bought your course. You know, I don't remember when, but I remember watching your webinars thinking, oh, if I could just be one of those guys on that webinar with those checks, you know. And I used to think it was BS. At the same time, I thought it was BS. I wanted to be one of them.
Right.
But I just was so relieved when I finally figured it out. Like, what this guy said to do works. And, you know, maybe it's just because I was so skeptical, believing that, it's just some fairy tale infomercial fake stuff.
Right.
Like, if it sounds too good to be true, it must be.
Right.
Dadgummit, you know, if it didn't happen, when at a time when everybody was running to the hills, like everybody was fleeing the market because everything's falling apart, and you know, Lehman Brothers is out of business, and no banks are giving mortgages anymore. But I just refuse to take no for an answer and implement it. So if anybody listening to this, if you want some advice from me, stop studying and start taking action. Like, your speed to income, Larry, and you know this, your speed to income is directly proportional to the number of offers that you make.
Right.
So if you want to start doing deals, guess what? There's no shortcuts. Start making offers, baby. Start making offers. Now, how do you make offers? Well, you start talking to sellers. How do you
got to
talk
make
to
the phone ring? Yeah.
You start doing marketing. You start making the outbound calls. You start doing the stuff. It's not complicated. Stop complicating it. I tell people all the time. Just get out there, make 5 offers a day. I don't care how you do it. If it's just like handwriting an offer and on a letter and dropping it out at the seller's door. If it's cold calling 5 or 10 Craigslist ads, cold call them. If it's whatever you got to do, get on the phone. Don't treat it like a cactus. I mean, you're going to make millions of dollars if you learned how to get good on the phone.
You know what?
Start making offers.
That's a great point. I tell people, Joe, in today's market where years ago, we could do nothing but HUD or nothing but MLS, right? But now we still buy HUD houses. We still buy houses off the MLS. But to get our volume up, right, we're doing direct mail. And when you do direct mail or pay-per-click or Craigslist or whatever, you know, being a successful real estate investor is not much more than being a glorified telemarketer, right? It's you're on the phone, you know, selling the seller. That's what you're doing, right?
You gotta get over that fear of the phone.
Right.
Sales is the $1 million skill, right? And there's so much that you can do, like, you know, you can still do deals without ever talking to sellers, right? But like, if you're not going to do it, you got to get somebody else that will. Right. And where we're doing most of our deals right now, Larry, is with cold calling, outbound cold calling. We're getting lists in markets where there's a lot of turnkey activity, a lot of landlords coming in and buying rental properties, and we're pulling mailing lists. We're skip tracing them, getting phone numbers. And have a VA, a virtual assistant in the Philippines, $7 or $8 an hour, that's cold calling these landlords and saying, "Hey, we're looking for. Are you Mark? Are you the guy who owns 123 Main Street? We'd like to make an offer on your house. Would you be interested in selling it?" And we're getting on the phone. We're getting on the phone and talking to people. Most of them, only 10 to 15% of our deals are coming from that first phone call. 85, 90% of our deals are coming after the 4th or 5th touch. So it's a lot of follow-up. It's a lot of back and forth phone calls, but we're not doing it. We got virtual assistants. We got local wholesalers that are doing it. But you know, the point is, get on the phone. Stop treating it like a cactus. It's hard. I mean, every day it's going to be hard. But once you make that first phone call, it becomes easier. You get better. You start practicing. And then the more leads you have coming in, the less desperate you're going to sound, the more confident you're going to be.
Right.
And then you start getting sellers to sell you on their home, and you become not, you got to be careful with being the motivated buyer, right? You want to be the
Right.
reluctant buyer. And so you're one of the best at that, Larry. You're one of the best guys I've ever heard on the phone.
Well, thanks. I really appreciate you saying that, but you hit the nail on the head. You want to be the reluctant buyer. If somebody calls up and, I mean, I may know it's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house, and I'm going to say, oh, so how many bedrooms you have? 3? No, it's 2.
This is so good. Well, you were doing this 2 on my podcast. I want to pick your brain, Larry. This is so good. Talk about how you talk to sellers. You're way better than I am.
It's a lot of fun, man. I love it. But the key here, Joe, I think, and you know this, is just get the people to like you and trust you and find some common ground. All we're really trying to do is solve a problem. In fact, the first 5 minutes in the call, I don't even talk about the house. One of the first questions I ask them, and I'm sure you do too, is something along the lines of what's going on in your life right now where you need to sell a property.
Yeah, what's your situation?
Right. What's your situation? And it doesn't mean if they're married or not, right? What's your status?
Or, just like, what would you like to see happen with this house?
Exactly.
We're more concerned with their story than the house. Like, I don't care about the property. I love the way you do it, though. Like, it's a duplex, or what's a better example? It backs to railroad tracks, but you might ask them a question. What's your backyard like?
Yeah. Do you have a big backyard?
It's a small backyard.
Yeah, you do have a garage, don't you? No? Let me make a note of that.
But you're doing it without being a jerk. You're being nice. It's the funny thing too, Larry. You guys down south, man, I'm telling you, I had some friends that heard one of my podcasts talking about hiremymom.com, and they're from San Diego. They were in our mastermind. I don't remember their names, but they heard me talk about hiremymom.com.
Right.
They're from San Diego. They actually hired some lady from the South. They intentionally looked for some lady in the South who had some sweet Southern charm accent.
Right.
Who called people sweetie and honey.
Right.
And they had her answer the phone. And fast forward 5 years later, this lady, she's a stay-at-home mom, right? She's doing multiple 6 figures a year now. And she's the main acquisitions manager for this investment company in San Diego. But people down there love talking to her,
I believe it.
Because they love her voice. It's just, she's nice, and she's got that sweet Southern charm. The deals we're doing right now in Alabama and Mississippi. We have a local wholesaler we're working with. She's a lady, and she's from the South, and she can turn on that Southern accent, depending on who she's talking to.
Right.
And she can soften that angry seller just like that. It's amazing. And then she throws them off guard, and she's really, really good. But that's the point. That's the thing, like if you're not good on the phone like that, maybe, you could practice, get better at it, or you could find somebody else who is and hire them or partner with them.
Right.
Because there are people out there that are really good on the phone. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it makes sense. And in fact, when we're hiring people, number one, I look for sales skills first, communication and sales and negotiating skills, and number two, real estate skills. Right?
Yeah.
Because you can teach anybody real estate skills, but the big skill is being able to communicate and negotiate and disarm people and get them to like you and trust you. And because think about it. If they think their house is worth $100,000 and I'm going to be offering them $25,000, you gotta be able to diffuse that. You've got to be able to put it out there in a way. You can't say, based on what I'm seeing, your house is not worth but $25,000. You can't do that, right? Mm-hmm. You've got to be nice about it and smooth about it. You gotta ease them into it. You gotta, wow, let me see. I'm pulling up some comps here. Wow, I don't know. Could this be a mistake? This is a house that sold 2 houses down for $25,000. Man, is that right? Well, wait a minute. Here's one sold for $32,000. Man, here's another one, 125 Oak Street. It sold for $18,000. Wow. Now, how'd you say you came up with your number? You got to ease into it. You know what I mean?
That's so good. The last person I would hire would be a used car salesman. I mean, they may be good at doing the high pressure thing, but I'm more concerned with getting somebody who's nice and who's friendly, right? Like
That's exactly right.
I've hired 2 acquisition managers, and both of them this wasn't intentional, and I didn't even realize this till a couple of years later. Both of them were former pastors.
Really?
Actually, one was a former pastor, one was a part-time pastor. The first guy, he just retired, nothing bad happened. He just wanted to do something else, and he had a lot of free time on his hands. So I said, hey, maybe you can be my acquisitions guy. He said, great. And I paid him 100% commissions, and we did a lot of deals together. Fast forward a few years, I'm looking to hire somebody else. This guy contacts me. He's a part-time pastor. He works at Home Depot for $8 an hour.
Wow.
And he was super persistent, but he wasn't over the top and pushy. Immediately, I knew that he was really good on the phone. He was nice, just a nice guy.
Right.
But he was also persistent. I thought, this is really good. I like him. And the other thing is, Larry, of all the people that applied, he answered his phones.
Yeah.
Like, he was accessible. He wasn't afraid of that phone. He answered it.
Right.
So I hired him. His wife would only let him come work with me if I replaced his $8 an hour Home Depot salary. So I paid him $8 an hour salary, and then I think 10 to 15% commission on the deals.
Right.
We had a little hurdle. He was too nice. Like, he was happy to make $2,000 or $3,000 on a deal. It's like, Joe, this is the most money I've ever made in my life. Like $2,000 for doing nothing. I said, okay, that's awesome. Congratulations, but we need to do more. We need to shoot higher than that, right? It's like, oh, so he reluctantly, I finally got him up to, I kept on telling him we need to shoot for 5,000. Then after he got comfortable with that, I said, all right, we need to shoot for 10,000. And finally he was comfortable with that. And we stopped working together. It's a long story, but like when our average profit was about $7,000 or $8,000 per deal, and we were doing 3 or 4 a week, and it was just amazing. But short story long, we had to part ways because we had a really good buyer, and he started working with the buyer and not with me, so I could wholesale my deals to him anyway. But there's something to be said with getting the people skills are more important than the technical skills, right?
That's so true. That is so true. Now, Joe, you mentioned you're doing stuff in Alabama and some other areas as well. Tell us a little bit about what your business looks like right now and what you're doing. Because, man, you're always thinking out of the box, right? You're thinking out of the box, but, you and I are in 2 different masterminds together, and you're always thinking, always growing, always learning, and looking at what other people are doing and tweaking it and creating your own processes and procedures. So share with our viewers what you're doing now.
I tell you, one of the best things about doing podcasts and coaching students, Larry, is I learn more things from my students than I do from any courses that I buy. Like, I'm always learning from my students what works, what doesn't. Like, just for example, the other day, I've been sending out text messages for years to Craigslist landlords for rent ads and FSBO ads, right? And I send out text message and I call the ones who raise their hand and say, yeah, I'm interested.
Right.
I've never, ever thought about calling the ones who didn't respond to my text message. One of my students says the other day, man, I'm getting all these great deals from people that aren't even responding to the text message. I'm just calling them. And I started thinking about it. I thought, holy smokes, that's brilliant. Because a lot of those landlords who put their numbers that aren't responding to my text, those phone numbers are maybe landlines. And maybe they're old school. They're some mom and pop investor who puts a landline on their rental ad. They're never going to get my text. Nobody else is texting them.
Right.
Why not call them? And holy smoke, sure enough, you know what? Calling them works. And those are the guys that you talk to, and they maybe don't want to sell that property, but they've got some other ones they could sell.
Right.
So anyway, I've always loved virtual wholesaling, right? And doing deals virtually in other markets because I've traveled to Europe for months at a time, or we've traveled in our RV and stuff. But I was talking to some students, and they were it was actually a realtor, and he was telling me, man, I'm having some pretty good success with this auto dialing stuff, right? I was like, well, realtors have been doing that for a long time. They cold call with the auto dialer expireds and for sale by owners, So I thought, that's interesting. Like, what if, I wonder if we could call absentee owners. Instead of mailing them, what if we could call them? And then I started networking with some masterminds and finding other guys that were doing this in really competitive markets. And I thought, oh, this is cool. So I started doing it. I started testing it.
Right.
And I started talking to some students that were doing it. And so we said, well, let's try it. And one of our students that was doing a lot of deals, she was getting frustrated because she was doing deals, but she couldn't handle all of the marketing and the talking to sellers and making the offers and following up. So we said to her, listen, what if we just did the marketing for you? We'll pre-screen the leads for you and we'll give them to you and you work them and we'll split the deals. She said, great. So we've probably done about 35 deals with her in the last 5 months, Larry. And this quarter, I mean, this month right now, we've got about $100,000 in profits under contract right now.
Awesome.
So don't know if we're going to sell all those deals, but like it's insane. So what we're doing is straight up cold calling. We're getting lists of absentee owners with equity in targeted zip codes where we know our buyers are buying, right? We know there's a high demand for housing there. We're getting a list of absentee owners with equity because of all of the sellers out there, the most likely group to be motivated are absentee owners. They're landlords, right?
Right.
So we skip trace. We'll get a list of maybe 1,000 or 2,000 addresses and names. We'll skip trace them, get phone numbers, and we get a VA, virtual assistant from the Philippines at $8 an hour that'll go in and just start cold calling through our auto dialer. We have an auto dialer we use. We use MojoSells. The VA has a real simple script, asks them 4 or 5 questions, doesn't try to make an offer, doesn't try to figure out where they're at. She just wants to find out if they have a house to sell. Because if they're a landlord and they have a house they want to sell, that's a great lead. So we put it into our CRM, which is Podio. Then the local wholesaler, Melissa's her name, gets on the phone and she calls them. And she's really, really good with follow-up. She's good on the phone. And so we just been partnering with her doing these deals. And she used to go see the houses. Now she doesn't. She got somebody that she pays $35-50 to go take pictures. Right. So she'll send them to go take pictures. Sometimes she'll send them to get the contract signed. Sometimes she'll get the contract signed electronically. But now, even in her backyard, she's not even going to see the house.
I love it, man. I love it.
Yeah, it's crazy easy. And Larry, one more thing. Most investors right now, if they're doing a lot of direct mail, they're spending anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000 in marketing per deal. Now they're still making 10, 20 grand per deal, but that's a lot of money to spend on marketing, right?
Right.
We're spending less than $500 in marketing per deal right now with this cold calling setup.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And who all did you say you're calling on this list?
We're calling absentee owners with equity.
Okay. That's awesome. That's really, really good. I love it. And plus, you could call the Craigslist ads.
Yes,
Craigslist
that's another great list.
And the turnkey buyer list as well.
There's 3 great lists to call. Number 1 is always your follow-up list. Right. Old leads, right? Old leads, always number 1. Number 2, I like to call absentee owners with equity. These are sellers, landlords that bought their houses in like target zip codes, at least 5 years ago that have, and there's lists that we can pull that have lots of equity.
Right.
The third would be, because I've been scraping Craigslist and Zillow for years, so I have literally tens of thousands of phone numbers of landlords, investors, and property managers and realtors that have been advertising rental properties in my markets. And so that's a great list to just cold call. And the way this cold calling works is it dials 3 phone numbers at a time. When somebody answers, it stops dialing the rest. And you just have we use a VA that does this. She only works 20 hours a week. We don't make her work any more than that. There's an efficiency curve.
Right.
So she makes calls for 2 or 3 hours a day. And then goes, after she calls everybody, she goes back through it and calls everybody again. So about every 30 days, she's calling everybody in that list at least once.
That's cool. Now tell everybody how MojoSells work. We actually just signed up for Mojo. I've got a list. I've got my direct mail list. I've had it appended, and I've got all my old leads, but I haven't even started using it yet. But I'm kind of familiar with it. But tell everybody watching a little bit about MojoSells and how it works, and it can dial multiple people at once and all that.
Well, you just gave me a layup.
Okay.
We're releasing this week a new course on all of this. It's called automatedmojo.com. If anybody wants to go check that out, automatedmojo.com.
Sweet.
Where we actually teach it. And it's simple. There's 4 little modules. Each of them are about 30 minutes long, 30 to 60 minutes long. Teaches you exactly what we're doing. So the Mojo is really simple. They have some really good tutorial websites, tutorial videos on their website
Right.
that walk through how to set it up. So we have found what works best is use somebody either local or virtual, but no more than a couple, 3 hours a day, because you can get burnt out really quick doing these cold calls. So if you're doing this local in your office, which I know you probably are, Larry, I would get somebody that would do it for 2 or 3 hours a day, maybe a couple people 2 or 3 hours a day, depending on how many phone numbers you have.
They can't really be on a dialer much longer than that. They can't handle it.
By the time after that, they'll get burnt out, they'll get angry and irritated, and it just doesn't work.
Right.
But if we have one VA doing 3 hours a day, we can usually get out of those numbers that she calls 3 to 5 good leads. And the other cool thing, Larry, oh my gosh, we're finding right now that we're getting just as many leads from sellers that answer the phone and we talk to them and say, yeah, I'd take an offer. I'd entertain an offer for a house. We're getting just as many leads from that as people that we leave voicemails on. Right. So in other words, if Mojo will pop up, like, hey, somebody's answering the phone, and it stops dialing the other numbers. And if it's a voicemail, you click a button and it leaves them a pre-recorded voicemail.
Yeah, you can move on.
Yes, so you can move on to the next one. But our pre-recorded voicemail says something like, hey, this is Jim. We're investors and we're looking to buy some more homes in the area. So it's pre-recorded, so it's not specific to a property, but it's like, we're looking to buy some homes in the area. We know that we think that you might own a property there. If you're interested in maybe selling your house, please call us back and leave a message, or call us back or whatever. So they will get that message. We're getting just as many leads now from the voicemails that we're leaving as from the people that we're actually talking to.
Wow, so that's sweet. I love that.
We're now getting anywhere from 7 to 10 leads a day from a direct mail list of just 2,000 addresses.
2,000? That's it?
That's it. But we're targeting high equity absentee owners in really good zip codes. Now, for us, a good zip code is where there's a lot of turnkey activity, a lot of investors that are buying houses right now, like turnkey rental properties.
Right.
I'm giving you all my secrets, Larry.
Yeah, I love it. It's great. Hey, I've got my own list I got to work first.
And that's a very good list. Did what's his name give you phone numbers, or do you have to get that yourself?
No, I got them. I paid for the phone numbers.
Okay. Is it a good list? I mean, like, did you get?
Let me just put it this way. I'm 6 weeks into the list, and I probably have 18 or 19 contracts.
I think that's worth it. Because I know your list was not cheap.
One guy tried to give me his house. I said, no, wait a minute. Let me look it up. I said, I can pay you 10 grand. We already have it sold for 20. But I'm buying one of the deals, Joe. I'm buying 8 acres for $10,000. 8 acres.
Just vacant land.
Just vacant land. 8 acres for 10 grand. I got another 6 acres I'm buying downtown Hickory, North Carolina. It's zoned for 20 units an acre. You could put 120 units on it. I got it for 80 grand. It already has water and sewer.
Larry, we're also doing some land flips, and it's so easy. We're just making blind offers. We're making blind offers.
Tell us about that. You and I talked about that last time we were together in St. Louis. Tell us about that.
Oh man,
if you don't mind sharing it.
I it's not shiny objects, but I like. Here's the thing: focus will make you rich, right? Shiny objects will make you go blind. But we're at a point, Larry, where I got a team and systems in place. Like, okay, you guys tackle that,
right?
We're okay. I got this shiny object itch I want to scratch, so I want to start learning land. So what I did though is I bought like 3 or 4 different courses on land investing. Jack Bosch is one of our mutual friends. I bought one from him. And I said, and I found 2 people that I wanted to partner with. And I said, all right, listen, I'll pay for the marketing and I'll provide the team. You go through these courses and learn how to do this, and we'll split the deal. I think we're doing 45-55 or 40-60 or something like that. They said, yeah. So what we've done is we're going out and we're finding vacant land in rural communities. Like, you got to be at least a couple hours away from any major city.
Right.
And because then you can get them super cheap.
Yeah.
And all we do is we're targeting some counties in Colorado right now and Oregon. And I'm talking like in the sticks, not in the mountains, but like in the foothills,
Right.
in the desert,
In the middle of nowhere.
The middle of nowhere. And you think, why would anybody buy a property here? I don't know, but they do. So there's a saying in land, there's a pig for every barn. There's somebody that's looking for land where they can ride their four-wheelers, they can build a cabin, they can hide their guns when the government comes. You know, hopefully a Democrat. I shouldn't say this. Like, I don't want to get into politics, but like when a Democrat is in office, you better start investing in guns, in the whole prepper survivalist industry, because everybody starts freaking out and starts thinking that they got to have, you know. So anyway, when Trump became president, gun sales went down, and but when Obama was president, a lot of people are out there looking for land to go and get off the grid. When Obama came to take all their guns, they wanted a place where they could go hide.
Right.
So, but there's always a demand for this house, this vacant land, because we buy it so cheap. We find out what a typical 2 acre is selling for, vacant lot, 2 acres, 2 to 5 acres. We find out what their average active listing price is on sites like LandWatch or Zillow or whatever.
Right.
And then we figure we'll make an offer at 15 to 20% of the average list price of those homes. And we'll pull a list of all of the vacant landowners. We'll send 500 to 1,000 offers a week to vacant landowners, and we will get about 1 out of every 300 to 400 offers will get accepted.
Right. That's awesome. And you just do like a 1-page simple offer and just stick it in the mail. So out of every 300 or 400, I mean, what if you mail out 10,000?
That'd be too much to handle.
That'll cost you about $3,000, and you know, and you're going to get a ton of deals.
It would be too much to handle.
See, that's my point. That's awesome.
You got to break it up. You know, start off slow, but like your goal is to get to like 1,000 offers a week. And the other cool thing, Larry, is you can sell these things on owner financing, and because it's vacant land, you don't have to. There's not the same laws apply
for Dodd-Frank.
For Dodd-Frank, because it's not residences.
And you don't have to go out and inspect the property and look at the condition. None of that.
So we've done about 30 of these land deals. I'm not an expert. You know, I don't have no intention of teaching it or coaching it.
Right.
Because there's already guys that have really good stuff on it. But you know, land is great. There's guys right now. Like there's a site you should check it out. Landcentral.com, I believe. It's some guy that buys these little infill lots in small town nowhere. And he'll buy these little lots for a couple $100, and he'll turn around and sell them for a couple $1,000. And he'll sell them on terms. He'll sell them for $50 to $100 a month,
right?
Or financing. He's been doing this since the late '90s, so I'm sure it's working for him, right?
Exactly.
And you can see, like, how on earth is somebody making money selling these little lots in the middle of nowhere, small city, for a couple $1,000? Well, he's selling them on terms. He's selling them on owner financing.
Exactly.
And he does this in multiple markets all around the country. But if you buy it cheap enough, it's like you can't make a mistake because you're buying it so cheap. Worst case, you sell it for what you bought it for and you break even. So if you sell it for cash, you make a quick $5 to $10,000 cash.
Right.
If you sell it on terms, you can start making $100, $150 a month cash flow on these notes. And it's super easy to start getting all of a sudden a couple a week, 5 or 10 a month, and that builds up. Now you don't get the tax benefits that you do with owning residential real estate houses.
The depreciation.
You don't get the depreciation. You don't get the tax write-offs and all of that. But there's a lot easier. You don't have to hire property management. You don't have to deal with repairs and vacancies and inspections.
Exactly.
There's a lot of advantages to it.
That is sweet. We have a contract out right now to buy a lot for $1,500.
You can use options.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing: we don't actually use an option. We just make sure our contract sometimes has closing dates 6 months out in the future. It's like there's no competition for these deals, and we make our offers contingent on verifying taxes, title, and value. And we do our due diligence. During this due diligence, we'll make sure that it's a good marketable piece of land. We'll start advertising the property. Sometimes we close on it and then sell it. Sometimes we'll sell it before we even buy it. There's some nuances there. You got to make sure you're doing it the right way. But like, you can sell these things really, really quickly. And if for whatever reason you've realized, you know what, I offered way too much, or this property there's an environmental wasteland there, like it's hazardous or whatever, you can back away from it and not buy it.
That's cool. That's cool. Joe, I want to point out one thing you mentioned a minute ago. When you started talking about the shiny object that you wanted to go after was the land, you bought several courses. And I think it's really important here. I mean, you and I mean, we teach this stuff. We're coaches. We're mentors. I even have coaching students that have gone to you, you know, and vice versa. And
one of them, by the way, you sent us, we've already done a deal with her.
That's awesome. That's sweet.
I don't know if you remember.
That's sweet. That's
just
sweet.
a month or two, we've already done a deal with her.
That's great, man. That is great. She's doing awesome. I'm really proud of her.
Yeah, she's amazing. She's really cool.
The thing I wanted to point out is, even though we know a lot of people and we would have people give us courses or, you know, just give us links to log into stuff, it's important that you have skin in the game. It's important that you invest your own money, because it makes you appreciate it more, right? When somebody gives you something, there's no value there, right? Yeah. But if you paid your hard-earned money for it, you're going to treat it more carefully and actually end up, you know, when you have skin in the game, you're going to end up using it.
Well, we practice what we preach, Larry. I mean, I could have asked these guys for free access to the course, and they probably would have given it to me.
Yeah.
One of them wouldn't have. I won't tell you who he is. But, like, you know, I pay a lot of money for coaching and masterminds and stuff like that. So I've always tell people, like, if you're looking for a coach or an educator, someone to teach you, make sure that they're, number one, they're actively doing deals, right? But they're also, like, staying up to date and current on the current trends and stuff like that. So, you know, I'm always out there buying books and courses and signing up for new programs, because I want to make sure I'm learning the best cutting edge stuff that I can pass on to my students, right? That I can start implementing and figure out what works and what doesn't work. And so I only try to recommend stuff that I'm actually doing. And I feel like that makes me a better coach. It makes me a better educator. And again, like we talked about before, I learned some of my best stuff from students. And so I'll have a student that tells me, like, man, I just saw, have you heard of this course? Have you seen this system? And I said, no. So I'll go buy it and get into it and start testing it and tweaking it and implementing it and stuff like that. And I won't steal stuff that I've, you know, like, what I'm trying to say is, like, I won't take what someone else taught and teach it like it was my own.
Right.
But I'll take the stuff that I implemented from that and said, hey, listen, I learned this really good stuff about land from Jack Bosch, and this is what we're doing now, and this is what works. You should go check out his course, and this is what we're doing. But
exactly. Or you learn, like, here's something I learned from Jack Bosch. I learned this from this guy. I learned this from this guy, and I took all this and I came up with my own. I took a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here, and I tweaked it a little bit and created my own system.
Well, let me give you a better advice, I think, even than this. Like, you've got a lot of courses on your shelf digitally that's collecting dust, right? And you're like, man, I spent a lot of money on that course. I haven't implemented it yet. This is what I started doing. I had some virtual assistants and a couple local assistants at one time. And I went through all my courses and I said, you know what? What if I gave some of these courses to my assistants and had them started going through it and started implementing it for me? And I've done that a couple times. I've given, I said, all right, this is a strategy. I want you to learn it. I want you to start implementing it. We're going to have a meeting once a week, and you're going to report back to me what you're learning. And then we're going to come up with a scorecard to track your progress. And we're going to start doing these deals. And I've done that several times. So, like, if I don't go through something, but I know this course works, I've done this in several different industries outside of real estate, even, Larry.
Sweet.
Where I've got an assistant who's got some time on her hands, or I want to move her into a different direction or something. I'll give her one of the courses that I bought and make her go through it. Or I'll work with some partners and have them go through that stuff. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it does. I love it. That's a great, great idea. I mean, you invest in the education, and then you're leveraging your time by helping somebody else go through it, and then you partner with them. That's one of the cool things I like about what you do is you've mentioned several times about I've got a partner doing land. I've got a partner or somebody helping me down in Alabama or down, Mississippi. And you're leveraging not only your time, but you're leveraging other people as well.
Yeah. And I think that's important. Look at, what's his name? The guy, Richard Branson. I mean, is there anybody that's done it better than he? He has lots of businesses, but he looks for people that are really good at what they do, and he hires them and he pays them well, and gives them the stuff to go and take it and run. It's not for everybody,
right.
I mean, obviously, if somebody's listening to this and they're just getting started in the business, I would pick a strategy and focus on it,
right.
like a laser beam. Right?
I agree.
Ignore everything else. Just focus on that one strategy and master it. And as you start, I refer to it as simple system scale. I learned this from Rob Swanson. I think you know Rob.
Yeah.
And there's this concept in the Air Force, I believe. It's called high speed, low drag. And that's where the efficiency is. If you're going to make a lot of money fast, you got to think about your drag. And the drag comes in where you have resistance and things that are slowing you down. So how do you remove that resistance? Well, you break everything down into silos, and you break it down into a simple component. You build a system around that, and only then do you scale it. So I'd encourage folks, like if you're looking at doing deals, pick wholesaling or pick lease options or land or whatever, but pick one, focus on it, keep it simple, super simple. Like, don't worry about doing 3 different marketing strategies. Like,
right.
Just get one.
Right.
Keep it simple, build a system around that, then scale it. And then look at your next marketing campaign, your next different marketing strategy. Keep it simple, build a system around that, and then scale it. Here's the thing, Larry. Once you get good and you have these simple system scale in your business, if you do 1 deal a month, there's no reason why you can't do 8. If you're doing deals in 1 city, there's no reason why you can't do deals in 8 cities.
Right.
It's just a duplicatable, repeatable process. And you won't get there until you start focusing on that one strategy. And in that one strategy, start breaking down simple components in that strategy and just focus on getting them to 100% before you start going to the next thing,
Exactly. Man, that is awesome advice. That's really good advice. Joe, you have a new book out, don't you?
Yes. I don't have it with me. Oh, I printed a bunch of them.
They're sold out.
It's been selling like crazy. It's been blowing me away. I wrote a book on wholesaling lease options. Oh, man. Don't know where it is. I should have prepared. It's on wholesaling lease options.
Right.
I talked before, I was doing a lot of wholesaling, but I started doing lease options because I got tired of throwing leads away that didn't have any equity.
Right.
And when I started doing that, I started making more money flipping lease options part-time than I was in my full-time job within about 3 months. And so that's when I quit my job. This was 2009. And I think lease options are becoming more important now than ever, Larry, because the market's starting to slow down.
Right.
And sellers are having a harder time. The houses are sitting on the market. I've always, there's that book called Who Moved My Cheese?
Right.
And it's always important to be a student of the market. And when you see the market start changing directions, you need to be prepared for it. And you need to understand creative real estate, owner financing, lease options, subject tos, because it's going to become more and more important as market conditions soften, and they are, to be able to have something that can help sellers that don't have enough equity. See, if you look at all of the motivated sellers in the world, in the United States, there's a lot more motivated sellers with a little equity than there are motivated sellers with a lot of equity. Does that make sense? And all the investors are out there targeting the motivated sellers with a lot of equity. But there's very few of them, and there's tons of investors targeting them. Well, what about the sellers that are motivated, job loss, job transfer, divorce, they have 2 mortgage payments, they're tired of being a landlord, but they don't have much equity, but they're just as motivated, right? So if all you knew was how to just make a cash offer, it's not going to work for those guys.
Right.
So I started doing lease options, and Rockefeller said that the secret to wealth is to own nothing and control everything.
Right.
And so there's no better strategy, in my opinion, than lease options to control really valuable pieces of real estate without using your own money to buy it, without getting a bank loan, without taking over a loan. just by using a simple lease with an option to buy it in the future. It's a real simple strategy. It's a way that you can start flipping deals that don't have any equity in it. Instead of throwing it away into the woodpile, make a lease option offer. So that's what I did. I wrote a book. It's super simple. It's called Wholesaling Lease Options. And if anybody wants it, you can go to WLObook.com, WLObook.com. I printed a bunch of them, and I'm giving them away for free, but you just have to pay shipping and handling, and you get it sent to you. And my guarantee is pretty crazy. It's super simple. If you don't like the book, I'll refund you the shipping and handling, and you can keep it. WLObook.com. And I'm getting actually really good feedback. I was real nervous. I haven't put it on Amazon yet because I'm like, oh, what if people don't like it? I'm going to get a bunch of bad reviews. But the feedback I've been getting has been really, really good. It's a simple book. You can read it in a couple, 3 hours. And WLObook.com. You should go get it.
That's awesome, man. That is really, really good. You know, when knowing you, I know it's got to be a great book.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
That's really good. That's really good. So, Joe, man, this has just been a wealth of information. We've been on here almost an hour now. It's one of the longest ones I've done in a long time. We probably should have broken it up into a couple, but it's all good. So, what do you need? The people out there watching right now, what do you need? What would you like to encourage them to do? How could they network with you? If they wanted to reach out to you, what would they do?
Well, a lot of ways people can reach out to me. I have a podcast, Real Estate Investing Mastery Podcast. I do 2 or 3 episodes a week, give away a ton of valuable free information there. I give a lot of stuff. I've been doing it since 2011. But if people are interested in my podcast, go to realestateinvestingmastery.com. I'm starting to do more YouTube videos. I'm going to be starting to do more educational content videos specifically for YouTube instead of just the podcast.
Right.
I'll be still adding them into the podcast, but people can go check up, just Google me, Joe McCall on YouTube, and you'll find me there.
Right.
And on Facebook, you can just check out Joe McCall on Facebook. You can find me there.
Awesome. Awesome. That sounds good. Joe, man, I really, really appreciate you being on today. This has just been some awesome info.
Thank you, Larry. I appreciate it. And it's an honor to be on your show again, man. I remember those early days watching your webinars. I remember very vividly where I was listening to you and watching you and being blown away as you walked through like the 20 different tabs that you had open, remember, in Firefox?
I do.
And you had all those different tabs, and you were showing us how to evaluate deals and find deals. And it was, yeah. I mean, remember, I don't know if you still use it, Larry. You talk about like if you were, I believe in this strategy so much. If you were to drop me off on a deserted island or take everything away from me, this is the exact strategy I would use. Do you remember?
Right.
I love that because you're somebody that really does believe what you teach and you actually practice it, which is an honor. It's rare in this industry.
Well, it's funny you said that because just like you, we made a commitment a long time ago. We're not going to teach anything we don't do. If we don't do it, we don't teach it, right?
Yeah.
So we teach what we do, just real world, on the street stuff that we do every day, right?
That's important. It's really important.
Is. Well, man, I really appreciate you being on here. This has been awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Larry. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Hey, say hi to Candace for me.
Oh, I sure will. Thanks.